Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the mayor, Heath Shearon, and I'm the host of this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pumped you're here hanging out with me today because I got my good friend Kyle Kuest hanging out. Can't wait for you to check it out. He's an award-winning salesperson, new to the industry, but making big waves already. I can't wait for you to hear it. Before I do, if you are looking for market access, if you're looking for someone to roll up their sleeves and help you to write more commercial, more personal, get into the E&S world, find a niche, join the 10,000 agencies countrywide that are using Smart Choice Agents. Also, go to smartchoiceagents.com and check out, there is no fees. There is higher commission, lower volume commitments, the whole nine. $11 billion in written premium. They're legit, real deal. smartchoiceagents.com. You got to check it out. What are you waiting on? Also, a game changer for your agency. If you're looking for an intake process, if you're looking for intake forms, if you're looking for a customizable, really cool experience for your clients that looks like it's a part of your agency, a part of your website, you can design it with your colors. You can do it with your branding, the whole nine. One-click solution to getting those deck pages you need to quote your prospects. Look no further than Canopy Connect. Go to usecanopy.com and go to /Heath. Make sure you go to the /Heath and get your discount. Book a demo. Do the whole nine. Make sure you tell them that I sent you, and you will get your first month free. You'll get a massive discount. You got to check it out. You have to. I don't know what you're waiting on. You've been listening to me for 5 years talk about Canopy Connect, and most of you have signed up, but there's some of you that may not have. You got to check it out. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you do that. Also, I want to talk to you about old school marketing. It's not too late to jump out there and get your marketing dollars to good use. Whether you're doing digital marketing, direct mail marketing, this guy can do it all. My man, Rusty, is unbelievable. Guys, go to oldschoolmarketing.com, OLDE, schoolmarketing.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to jump out of the way so you can check out my phenomenal conversation with award-winning, two-time award-winning, new to the industry, but making big waves, my man, Kyle. My man, Kyle. What's going on, brother, man?
It's going good, Heath. How are you?
Man, I am good. I am absolutely wonderful, actually. So where you at right now, actually?
So
I see.
I'm out in Denver.
Okay.
My fake background here is our office.
But you're not there.
I'm not there. No.
I gotcha. Okay. So for those that don't know, Kyle works with me at Vertafore, and I got to see you all over the place in Denver, like winning awards, going on stage, doing presentations. Like you were crushing it a couple weeks ago at SCO, dude.
Thanks,
I
man.
love to see it. Love to see
it's
it,
fun.
man.
I texted my wife. I've worked at a lot of different places over the years. I have not worked in a place that celebrates people the way Vertafore does. Dude. And it was just cool to be a part of that and to get celebrated. As much as I love celebrating other people, it's fun to get a couple attaboys every once in a while.
Dude, I love that you almost missed one of your awards because you're like, oh, I'm not going to win. And you were out in the lobby like, oh, shoot, I did. That was funny.
I've got a daughter at home. So SCO, if you've ever been to one, it's a long week. And my daughter was going down for the night. So I was staying a night to her. And award ceremony literally just started. And my wife was like, are we interrupting? I was like, no, we're doing awards. I'll sneak in the back and, clap for some people. I don't think I'm getting anything this year. It was maybe 15 minutes after I had said goodnight to my daughter that I was getting my name called. And I was texting my wife like, hey, actually, I did get something. So.
And you got more than one, didn't you?
I did. I got two.
Dude, you were crushing it. So, okay, before we get too deep into that, because the audience may not know who you are. So why don't you back up a minute? Let's take a walk down memory lane. Tell me a little bit about you and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, I was telling you a little bit about this over SCO. I've got a fun little journey that I've been on. My background is based largely in the church. So I'm the son of a pastor, the grandson of a pastor, missionary. Like it is in the DNA. I'm the oldest. I'm the first grandson, first grandkid. So like the stars were aligned that like I was supposed to go work in the church, and that's what I wanted to do for a long time. I went to college out here in Colorado. at Colorado Christian University and wanted to study youth ministry. My dad had been a youth pastor for a long time. My dad actually talked me out of it. It's like, hey, if a church is going to take you with a youth ministry degree, they'll take you with a lot of other stuff. Why don't you diversify yourself? So I was like, okay. So studied for to be a high school history teacher slash potentially a baseball coach, since that is my love when it comes to sports is baseball. And ended up being a teacher for a little over a year. Shout out to anybody who's a former teacher because that was the hardest year of my life. I was newly married, working like 60, 80 hours a week on barely 40 hours of pay. And if you're a teacher or you know a teacher, you know what I'm talking about. And I just looked at my wife one night, like we were barely seeing each other, and we're like, we're not gonna make it. So pivoted, talked to my dad, and he's like, hey, why don't you try the church thing? Like, that's what you wanted to do at one point. Let's you know, come work at a church and see what it's like. So went to do an internship at a large church down in Phoenix, Arizona, me and my wife, and had an amazing experience during that year. I got to learn a lot of things, got to see a lot of things. We ended up going on a trip to Egypt that I can tell you about another time. That was pretty life-changing. But then, worked in the church for 6.5 years and loved it. Had a pretty rough falling out of the church, which is probably a story for another day. Still love Jesus, but knew I had to do something else with my life. And so we moved back to Colorado, tried a couple things out here in Denver before found Vertafore finding me kind of, Eric, our in HR kind of reached out to me and was like, hey, we'd like you to apply and for a little research. I was like, sure, why not? And the rest is, as you say, history.
Yeah. So one of the things that you and I've talked about, and it's no secret, on my show, if you've been listening the last 5 years, that, I'm a believer and I'm a huge fan of the ministry and of working in churches. And I used to work in a church as well. So my audience knows that about me. But, you and I were joking around about if you can sell Jesus, you can pretty much sell anything, especially in our society and what we see every day and whatnot. And, I say that in jest, but there's a lot of truth to that, and so I think it's funny, that some of the best salespeople I know are people that come from the ministry.
Yeah, I think we got to talking a little bit about that at SCO, and I used it in my interview because, when you work in the church, you're doing a lot of objection handling, you're doing a lot of listening, you're doing a lot of pain probing and solving. And that's sales at the core. Is if you're not in it to solve a pain point, you're probably not doing sales,
Right.
So
yeah, I would completely agree. And so you've now been at Vertafore for how long now?
A little over a year now.
Okay. And so a little over a year now, and you didn't have a whole lot of insurance experience or like knowledge of insurance other than like having your own policies.
None.
Yeah.
I had probably negative amounts of insurance knowledge when I came into Vertafore. Thankfully, when Vertafore onboards new people, we do a whole crash course on the history of insurance, how it operates. And as a former history teacher, I was jotting down notes because I just thought it was super interesting. I was like, how do we not teach more about this?
Yeah, 100%. And so,
a fun year.
One of the things that people may not understand, about Vertafore, and again, this is not the Vertafore show or anything, so I won't get too deep into it. But one of the things about Vertafore that I learned when I came on here was it is a massive sales organization. It's so much more than just a technology company or a marketing arm or a this or that.
Totally.
It is a massive sales organization. In the first year that I went to SCO, our sales kickoff meeting last year, I was blown away at the amount of salespeople there, the amount of just, as you mentioned, celebration and rah-rah and for lack of a better word, just a testosterone in the room of like, and I know there's a lot of women sales, but they're killer at Vertafore, but just that amount of like chest bumping and high-fiving and just, loving, the insurance industry. And that's one of the things that I love about Vertafore is one of the big, I don't know if you call it pillars, whatever you call it, is we love insurance. core values. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Core values is we love insurance, and people don't recognize that. We're not just a tech company, that, Vertafore is something that they do invest in the insurance, and they know insurance. They love insurance, and they hire people like me coming from the insurance industry to work alongside people like you that are brand new in the industry, and we can help each other.
Right.
And you and I have been on many calls together about insurance and how to sell insurance and do this, that, and the other. But tell me about in the last year and a half, whatever you've been here, you've been on the phone with a lot of insurance agencies and a lot of different people in there. What is one of the most common things you've learned about like my audience right now listening is insurance agencies, but what is one of those things that you've just learned about our industry?
I mean, that would be a whole nother podcast in of itself. But when I'm having conversation with a lot of your listeners and agency owners, producers, CSRs, office managers, it is a lot of conversation about the hard market and the complexities and the challenges that branch off of that. And when people hear the hard market, they usually think of one facet, whether it's carriers not returning rates, pulling out of markets, but it affects so much more than that. It's, it's the rewrites, it's the having to go back to market, it's, having really tough conversations with policy owners and, on top of, navigating relationships with carriers, some of them who are treating people really well and other carriers who maybe not be doing quite as good a job at that. And just I find a lot of times very pastoral in my calls so much because I feel like, and I've only been in the industry for so long, but I feel like insurance can get a little lonely, especially for some of the agency owners.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're just looking for an ear to share their hardships with.
Yeah.
This is what's been going on. I don't know how to solve these problems. I don't even know if we want to solve the problem with Vertafore with you, but since you're here, I've had 30, 45-minute conversation with the agency owners. And I've prayed for people after calls sometimes just with stuff that they're going through.
Dude, that's phenomenal. One of the things, a couple of things, I wanted to write down to get into as you brought that up. And, one of the things that I try to share as I talk to people all over the country as well, and I've been at this for a long time, 20 plus years. A lot of people, when they're talking to me about hard market or they're talking to me about their challenges in the industry, a lot of times it can feel like, as you mentioned, maybe they're alone in that, or maybe they feel like, oh man, this is only happening to me and this, that, and the other. But as someone who talks to agencies across the country, I'm someone who talks to people like that. You're not alone in this, and it's so easy to feel that way. It's like, golly, all of my clients are getting these rate increases, or all of my carriers are pulling out, or it's only me that's happening to. But no, you're not alone in that. And there's so many agencies right next door to you, or in the next state over, or 10 states over. They're dealing with the exact same thing. Like no one's immune to this market.
Yeah, and I think it comes with sales, but because of the industry we're in, it can get competitive to the point that we're hesitant, or people seem hesitant to reach out for help or to collaborate with the agency down the street. I think certain communities are probably better at it than others, but there's some people, where it's like, it's me versus the big captive carrier in town, and it feels like me versus the world, or there's another agency in town, but we're competing over the same business. Like, how do you engage in those conversations? And I'm a huge proponent of a rising tide raises all ships.
Sure.
And the more that we can come together and collaborate, because the challenges we face in the insurance space are so complex and challenging, it's going to take collaboration. It's going to take a village.
100%. And, the other thing that, I took from, that answer that you gave, which was phenomenal, was, as you talk to these people and you being a salesperson, in the industry itself, we're all doing the same thing. We're all selling something, whether it's policy or we're selling our carrier to a client or, to an agency, or we're selling whatever it might be. You talk about leading with empathy. And I talk about that a lot in my daily life with my kids, with, insurance folks. There's a lot of that right now in the hard market because someone that is on the phone with someone, they're getting chewed out probably by their clients because, oh my God, you people raise my rates. It's not your fault as an agency owner, or as that CSR. It's not your fault. You didn't raise those rates. It's, and that's one of the first things I tell a CSR and I'm talking to them or consulting with them is don't apologize. It's not your fault. You didn't do it. Like you said, a lot of people just want that ear, someone just to listen to them. And I think a lot of selling is just shut up and listen.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of selling is shut up and listen, and then just being organized with your processes. I think that's been coming from the church world. I had to be really organized
Yeah.
because you're delivering a sermon every 7 days or so.
Yeah.
And so you get done with the last one and you're right to work on the next one, while on top of it, pouring into your team, investing in your relationships, planning events on the side, trip. I mean, you got a lot of balls in the air, like a lot of the agency owners do. There's a lot of
Yep.
balls. And if you are not organized, I found the conversations can go better when you're going to them versus when they're coming to you. And
Yep.
so the agency owners who are able to get out in front with some of those hard conversations, is what I call them, and say, hey, we know this is going to be a hard conversation. We're aware of it. We're working on it. Versus, hey, there's your email from your carrier or whoever letting you know that you're paying X amount more this upcoming year. Um, there's been a big difference for a lot of the agencies that I work with when it comes to regard to that specific conversation.
Yeah. And obviously you're doing something right as far as, in your sales, whether it's your organization or your empathy or whatever it might be, because obviously you've won some awards in your first year and you're doing some things there. And I know you're not, you're humble enough not to want to brag on yourself on that. So I'll do it for you. But what are some of those things that you feel like you could talk to the salespeople on the other end, or the CSRs on the other end of this, listening to this in their car or running or on their bike or whatever it might be, on the treadmill? What could you tell them to encourage them right now, to navigate some of those challenges and to be a better salesperson or be a better customer service rep or be better at some of those things in these challenging times?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer that the more organized you can be, the more room you have to be human on your calls. Like,
Okay.
I don't know about you, when I'm taking a call off the back foot, not at my best, versus when I'm taking a call off my front foot. And so I think the questions I think of is, what can I do in my sphere of influence to make sure I'm taking as many calls, not every call, because not all of it is in your control, but taking as many calls, as many interactions with my customers on the front foot as I can, so that I can lead with empathy and I'm not in a defensive posture. I'm prepared. I tend to get defensive when I'm not prepared and throwing out the excuses left and right. But when I'm organized and prepared, that allows me to lead kind of with the way that I feel like I was created to be, which is an empathetic, joyful, energetic person. And so when I came into Vertafore, I mean, thankfully we had a lot of workflows and structures in place.
Yeah.
Because I value it so much in my personal sales process. That's a conversation I love having with CSRs, account executives, agency owners, producers, is what do the workflows look right now? And is it allowing you to lead off the front foot, or do
Yeah.
you feel like you're constantly operating off the back foot?
I love that. And so, as you talk about even not even necessarily Vertafore related, but when you're talking about just Kyle's, organization in that, or, your processes, I'm sure you developed your own outside of, and I had your own little method, your own little ways of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Where could, a salesperson or even a manager of salespeople or an agency owner, where would you say they should start on some of that to get prepared for a good sales call, or to be prepared for some of these challenging service calls for that matter?
Great question. I think in my personal life, so a little bit more about myself. So I am ADHD to the max, and I didn't get diagnosed till later in life. And I
Yeah.
wish I had known sooner. Um, but what it allowed me to do is label it so that I could start to put in things in place, not just rely on medication, but also put in practice, physical day to
Sure.
day things. So I live and die by my Google Calendar. Like, it has to go in there for me
Yeah.
to know about it, to remember it, to make sure it gets done. When it comes to my work thing, I live by my calendar. Like, my calendar is super organized. If I have an appointment on there, I'm there. If I can be there, I'm 5 minutes early. When it
Yeah.
comes to my email, I treat my email like a to-do list. Like, my goal
Yeah.
is to get my email inbox to zero by the end of the day, if I can.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
And it only stays in my inbox if there's something left I need to do on that. Everything
Yeah.
else is going to go into a folder that for that
Sure.
specific interaction, whether it's a customer interaction, a company interaction, whatever it is. And that way I know, like, I just have the peace of mind every day when I come into work and I look at my email. I've got my calendar right there and I've got my email. And if there's nothing in my inbox and there's nothing on my calendar, guess what? I get to go prospecting. And I know that I'm not neglecting other obligations. And if it's in
Yeah.
there, I know that I got to get that done as soon as possible. So it's really small, but it's had reverberating impacts for me in my life.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you, and I don't know, I might have to cut some of this because I don't know if I'm right on this or not, but I feel like, you work off of a lot of leads that are either given to you or handed to you, or maybe purchased them, whatever it might be. I know there's a lot of agencies out there that have inside sales team that works off of leads and whatnot. Is there a different sales tactic to working with leads as opposed to straight up cold calling?
Yeah, so I treat leads like I would a warm conversation. They know enough about me that they're at least expecting some sort of call, email, whatever it might be. But I'm not going to go into that call assuming they know a lot. They
Yeah.
just know, they knew enough to say, hey, I'm interested. They raised their hand. And so I treat largely my cold calls and my lead calls very similarly. Now, with a lead, I might have a direction already, or at least a loose direction, whether, as an inbound, hey, I'm interested in a management system, a rater,
Yeah.
AgencyZoom, whatever it is. But I'm not going to hold that as gospel, because when we start diving into, again, because I'm all about organization in your tech stack. And if we're adding
Yep.
pieces before we have other pieces in place,
Yeah.
probably not helping you out. Like, I could sell you the software, but at the end of the day, that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel good for me. It won't feel good for you. And so
Yeah.
I make sure that I'm doing a full discovery with both my inbound and my prospecting, so that I can recommend, or at least direct our conversation in the right direction towards the right product. And for me, that's all about a management system. And once we have that backbone in place, we can start adding some of those other pieces that are huge value adds, but won't necessarily be the same ROI as if you didn't have your backbone.
Yeah. And that's, and I've noticed that about you in general. Like I've sent over the last couple of weeks, I've had some referrals I've tried to send your way, and you're like, hey, I'm not the guy, but let me connect you with this person. Or if you are the guy, you'll take it, but you connected me with the right people when you could have easily tried to figure out a way to make it work. But you followed the processes, you followed, what you're supposed to do, the workflows, and you got me to the right people. And now Dante's going to close on one that, from Arkansas, actually, that you and I worked with to get him connected to the right person. And I love that. And I think you're right on to something as far as, agencies, tech stacks. And a lot of people right now that I talk to in the industry outside of Vertafore and, with my work at Vertafore is trying to get more efficient, trying to find ways to use their technology that they have now and maybe couple it with some other things. And I think, it's no secret. I'm a big believer in this too. I think it's just fact or gospel, for, if you will. It starts with the CRM, and it starts with the, with the management system, whatever that looks like for you, whether you have a Vertafore system or not. It has to start there.
Has to.
And then from there, it's just about, figuring out, and as you talk about fact finding, I think within your agency, as agency owner or a principal, or if you're an account manager or whatever it might be, have the conversations in your agency to say, where are we having the biggest headaches? Where are our challenges right now? And maybe it is with quoting. And so you might want to talk to somebody about PL rating or commercial submissions.
Sure.
Maybe it is, man, we really need some help with our workflows. So maybe you talk to somebody about something there. Or, man, I would really like to have, something to help me, like maybe a library of insurance software, like insurance publications, whatnot. Maybe you're looking for something like Reference Connect. Maybe you're looking for whatever it might be, And so I think even within your own agency, before you have the conversation with somebody to say, oh, we definitely need this, maybe you don't need that because that's not your problem.
It might not.
So I think within your agency, if you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out your tech stack, I think having the conversation, maybe it's your next team meeting, or maybe you schedule a special team meeting just to have, or a survey sent out or something to say, where's your biggest pain points? Where's your biggest challenges? And one of the things that I'll put a little plug in for Vertafore here that I'm super excited about and I'm so fascinated with is we had this Project Impact, where I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but we had one of our guys, Vijay Munaswamy, and some of his team went out and they visited with almost 100 CSRs, account managers, servicers, And they sat down with these people for like hours on end and looked at what they were doing and watched and like asked the questions like, why'd you click there? What'd you do that for? Why'd you go to this website? Why'd you do this? So we could figure out how we could build solutions at Vertafore to help them. And like, to me, that blew my mind. I didn't know that was even going on until I saw the press release. I don't know how much you guys have had to work with that, but I do think it goes back to what you and I are talking about right now of like, sit down with your team and figure out, well, where's our pain points? Why are we clicking here? What are we doing here? How can we be more efficient?
Yeah. I'm going to say something that like, it's just going to be very honest and transparent. But I think that the question that's so often missed when agencies are exploring partners is, how are you going to grow with me? And how are you continuing to invest in my success? Because again, this may rouse some feathers. A lot of our software is very similar to some of our competitors' software. There's things that I believe, personally, that we do better. There's things that they may do better than us. But at the end of the day, we're trying to achieve very similar things across the board with a lot of our software. I think we do have some software that is probably a pretty big differential compared to some other stuff, but by and large, it's a lot of the same stuff. I think what can separate certain companies from others is, what are they doing to continue to invest in your success? Not just for the next year, not just with this product, but what does that look like a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? How is this software going to continue to evolve with my needs and the needs I may not even know about yet because it's not here yet? And those are the conversations I love having, because those are people conversations.
They are.
Software is cool. It's made by people to support people.
100%. Whether you're Applied, whether you're Vertafore, whether you're Hawksoft, whether you're any of the, other systems out there, you got to figure out what's best for your agency first and foremost, and then find what integrates well with it. Find out what, works well with, what you have in your agency. And, it's the other cool thing I like about, working with Big Orange is we integrate with just about everybody in anything, and so, obviously to each their own, whether it's, Coke or Pepsi, or whether it's, whatever, Bud Light, Miller Lite, I don't care what it is, church or not church. It doesn't matter. Everybody has their own, their own feel, their own flair, their own ideas of what they think is best. I just think within your agency, you have to address the situation and be prepared for those conversations. And, that being said, I can't believe, we're having to wrap up here in a minute, but I did want to give you a minute. Again, this is the Insurance Town podcast, not Vertafore. However, if there is an agency out there listening, whether it's you, or I know you have your own territory, or somebody else, obviously there's some products that we believe in at Vertafore and that you believe in that, is there, something, either way they can contact, or the best way for them to find out more about Vertafore if they wanted to? And I'll let you, kind of run that however you want to.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple different ways. Obviously Heath and I both work for Vertafore, so we're happy to make an introduction, but our inbound team is phenomenal. And so if you just go to our website, just say, hey, I want to learn more, you'll be handled by one of our 3 inbound reps who are all really phenomenal and are great at just making an introduction, getting to know you guys, and then pointing you in the right direction. So I would say that if you're kind of in a place where, hey, I'm curious, that's a great route to go. If there's a product that like an evangelist for, outside of management systems, because I'm just such a believer, is like, hey, that is square one for anybody. If you haven't made any kind of investment, you need to get a management system. If it's your first one, let's talk about QQ Catalyst. If you're doing a lot of commercial, let's talk AMS 360. Outside of that, I'm just so pumped on what AgencyZoom does.
Yes.
And I know that you talk about it a decent amount on here. I know that it's fairly well known in the market. If you haven't heard of it, you need to learn about it, because again, it's a force multiplier for your agency. And the conversation I have with outside the market, that's probably the next most prevalent, is I am just so overwhelmed. And when we dive into that conversation, it's usually because there's not automations, there's not a consistent workflow, there's not a process for different sales pipelines, whether it's commercial, personal, cross-sell, upsell, life, health, and then servicing. And all of that needs workflows so that it's being done consistently, so that the agency owners don't have to step in. They don't have to worry, is this getting done?
Yep.
You can check it from one place and it's getting done. You can check on your producers and see who's maybe got more bandwidth than others. And I always get excited about those conversations, because
Yeah.
the joy that comes from those people on the back end is like, I wish I had done this 2 years ago. And
Awesome.
that's a fun place to be.
Now, are you pretty active on LinkedIn?
Very active on LinkedIn.
So if they wanted to, I'll link it in the show notes here, but if you want to, just look it up.
Yep.
And it's, the last name is Kuest.
It's pronounced Keist, but it looks like Quest with a K.
Right. That's right. Questlove. But anyway,
Questlove.
Kyle Kuest. But it's, like you said, Kuest. So if you wanted to find him, I want to make
just
sure
shoot me a message on there, send me a connection request.
Yeah.
I love learning from you guys. And so even if it's just a quick conversation, just to get to know you and hear about your journey, I'm always down for that. If we talk about software, cool. But honestly, I'm such an extrovert. I'm a golden retriever. I like making friends.
Heck yeah, I hear you. Or if you wanted to call and talk to him a little more about Jesus, he'd love to say some Jesus too. I guarantee it.
I can do that too.
You and me both, brother. Man, I appreciate you spending some time with me. I appreciate the opportunity to bring you on my show here. And I know in the future I'll bring you into the Vertafore podcast as well, but I had to get you here first, just so we could bring up, topics that I wanted to bring up. And so, I already love you. I've already enjoyed so much the last year getting to know you and just seeing your heart for people and watching you connect with people. It's been so awesome. So thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of the show today. And I look forward to future conversations.
Yeah. Thank you, Heath. It's been a pleasure. Look forward to continuing the journey with you next year.
Heck yeah, brother. Thank you.